за нашу мрію про Україну. Всім добрий вечір. Всім добрий вечір. За нашу мрію про Україну. Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of our warriors,
За наше життя, життя українців.
wings for freedom. Wings for freedom.
Шановні громадяни України. Всім добрий вечір.
On behalf of the brave. On behalf of every father and every mother. Wings for freedom. On behalf of our warriors. And paves the way.
Hello, and welcome to Tochnyi Weekly, the show that gets behind the headlines to discuss the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine. We broadcast live every Sunday at this time. Follow and subscribe to the account on YouTube and Twitter for updates about any additional content we do. We have an excellent show for you today. First, I will present the weekly news report about developments in Ukraine. Next, German aid to Ukraine will provide his weekly report on those developments, followed by our military panel, which will discuss some combat footage and a few other topics. So without further delay, I will start the news report with the first item, and hopefully we'll be pulling up some footage for that. I will go ahead and begin. Hopefully the back-end people will pull up footage as I speak. The overnight shelling in Donetsk Oblast injured 10 people, including 4 children, in several villages in Donetsk. Ukraine's Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko said on Thursday this escalation comes as Russia intensifies its attack on eastern Ukraine and claims to have captured the contested village of Kromove. In addition, I would just mention this is older footage of an attack on Donetsk Oblast, but it is a similar region. Next item. Ukraine reports that Russia has launched significant assault. The Ukrainian army, mostly on the defense in recent days there, notes that Russia is losing manpower at a rapid pace. Oleksandr Tarnovsky, a Ukrainian commander responsible for the region near Avdiivka, noted a significant increase in Russian military activity over a recent 24-hour period. However, there were also reports as of December 2nd suggesting that Russian forces had temporarily eased their attacks on Avdiivka. The situation of Avdiivka, located in Donetsk, has been a critical point of contention since 2014. The town, which once had a population of around 30,000 people, has been the forefront of the conflict for a long time. Next item. There is what we can say alleged, but I think we can say is relatively, it doesn't seem likely that there's any other explanation besides poisoning, considering that it's heavy metals, but poisoning of a Ukrainian official's wife. The Ukrainian authorities have reported that Mariana Budanova, the wife of Ukraine's military spy chief and all-around badass Kirilo Budanov, has been hospitalized due to poisoning by heavy metals. This incident adds to a series of non-combat related adversities reflecting individuals in the Ukrainian government and military. I know that there was some discussion that there were possibly others in the SBU that may have been poisoned similarly, but I haven't heard any updates on that. So we'll keep everyone informed as to the situation there. Of course, we wish a speedy recovery to Mrs. Budanova. It's a very terrible thing to have happened. Next item. There have been several storm-related deaths on the Black Sea coast. Both Russia and Ukraine's Black Sea coast have been hit by a fierce storm, resulting in at least 3 fatalities and leaving hundreds of thousands of people without power. The storm devastated infrastructure, adding to the challenges faced by populations in these regions from the war already. So it's pretty significant storms. We have the situation in the Black Sea. There's also reports of storms in Kyiv that are quite bad. Even Kyiv, there's quite bad snow, I'm hearing. So just all around pretty rough weather in Ukraine right now. And people are having a lot of difficulty. A lot of rescue operations have to be undertaken to get people safe in these situations. So our regards to the emergency workers who go out and rescue people dealing with these problems. So next item. The Ukrainian Armed Forces Strategic Communications Directorate confirmed that Russian troops executed 2 Ukrainian soldiers who had surrendered already as prisoners of war in Donetsk Oblast. The incident occurred on December 2nd, 2023. A video disseminated by the Ukrainian Deep State Telegram channel shows the execution. The Donetsk Oblast Prosecutor's Office has initiated an investigation into the matter as to the killing of POWs is a violation of the Geneva Convention, of course. Russian soldiers infiltrated Ukrainian positions near Stepove village in Donetsk Oblast and shot the 2 surrendering Ukrainian soldiers. Ukraine's parliamentary speaker Ruslan Stefanchuk condemned Russia, labeling the actions that of a terrorist country. Alexander Stupin, spokesman for the Tavria group of forces, reported that the Russian troops involved in the killing of the Ukrainian POWs were later killed in action. So I suppose some justice there, but nothing approaching the justice that needs to be brought against the many, many war criminals in the Russian military. Next item. This is probably the biggest story by far. It's really definitely in terms of, I'd say, things Ukrainians really care about. This is something that really is affecting Ukrainians a lot. So I'm going to try to explain it in some detail. And I think also we might have Andrew here to kind of give maybe a little bit more context and maybe somewhere you can learn even more about it. So this is, of course, the story about the blockade at the Polish-Ukrainian border. Of course, there are a few other blockades going on, but we'll use this as maybe an example of kind of a larger situation going on in Europe. The blockade at the Polish-Ukrainian border, initiated by Polish truckers and joined by farmers, has reached a critical point in recent weeks. The protest started on November 6th, with the truckers demanding the reintroduction of a permit system for Ukrainian truckers entering the EU and for EU truckers entering Ukraine. This system had been lifted following an agreement between the EU and Kyiv on June 29, 2022, after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The protesters are blocking access for trucks moving commercial goods at 4 out of 8 road crossings, significantly disrupting traffic. They are only letting a few trucks pass per hour, with exemptions for government vehicles and in some cases humanitarian items. The main demands of the protesters include the reintroduction of this permit system, exemptions for empty EU trucks from Ukrainian electronic queuing system, So in other words, Polish truckers leaving with empty trucks. Enforcement of EU legislation regarding Ukrainian haulage companies. So they want the Ukrainian haulage companies to have like the EU regulations that Polish companies have. A ban on registering haulage companies by entities outside the EU, particularly focused on countries east of Poland. So those are the demands that the protesters have laid out. Ukraine has expressed its desire to have its export routes via Poland unblocked before engaging in these talks with Warsaw and the European Commission on this matter. Kyiv has made it clear that it will not compromise on licenses for Ukrainian drivers, which is a key demand of the protesters. The blockade has caused substantial economic impact, with the European Business Association in Ukraine estimating accumulated losses of over 305 million hryvnia, or 8.5 million US dollars. In response to the situation, the European Transport Commissioner, Adina Velian, stated on November 29th that Ukraine and the EU cannot be taken hostage by these Polish truckers blockading. Describing the situation as unacceptable, she emphasized that Brussels reserves the right to intervene to ensure the respect and application of the rule of law. To alleviate some of the blockade's impacts, Ukraine and Poland did agree to open a border crossing for empty trucks on December 4th. This crossing this is a Polish name, Dolchowiczów Uchryniw, currently serves cars and buses. I apologize to our Polish listeners, by the way, for my pronunciation. This crossing currently serves cars and buses and will be open to empty trucks traveling from Ukraine into Poland. Moreover, the Polish infrastructure minister Alvin Gajadur met with the protesting carriers and announced steps to partially lift the blockade. This was done from some negotiations going on directly between Ukrainian infrastructure officials and Polish counterparts. The carriers indicated that they would not extend their protest to 2 more border crossings and expressed a readiness to consider softening the protest if the Polish state strengthens control over truck entry into Poland. So in other words, there are negotiations ongoing. They seem to be making progress in the negotiations, hoping that the Ukrainian officials and the Polish officials can reach some kind of agreement that will at the very least get the blockade kind of lifted, and then we can maybe work out some of the larger issues at play here. So I think that's kind of my general summary. I did want to mention, though, that we do make an effort here to, as we say, Tochnyi, get behind the headlines. We do try to talk to Ukrainian sources and get maybe a little bit more information. This is what like the news is reporting about it. I tried to lay out as much of the factual kind of information that is reported by the global media as possible. But I think like Andrew maybe has a little bit more context in terms of like how this affects Ukrainians kind of on the ground at a basic level. So I just wanted to maybe give Andrew, you an opportunity to just discuss a little bit like your thoughts, or you've asked some people about this and like they've given you some information. So I wanted you to maybe share that with the listeners. So please go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, thank you. Well, first, I believe you mentioned that the Polish farmers have gotten involved in this protest, and part of what's happened to those Polish farmers, and this isn't all, but these are two things that they seem to be upset about. Is first, many Polish farmers were waiting out the wheat prices because they had kept going up over a period of time, and they were expecting the prices to continue to rise, and many of them did not sell their wheat at the highest price available to them, or even at the peak, and then the price of wheat dropped pretty dramatically at one point during the end of harvest, and this drop in price hurt a lot of Polish farmers, and they many of them appear to be taking it out on Ukraine as if I don't know how or what logic there is to that, but that seems to be part of it. And the second part is that there are some allegations that Ukraine dumped a lot of wheat into the Polish market at the end of summer. I don't know if there's any actual evidence that this is true, but this is an allegation that many in Poland are making. As for how this impacts Ukraine itself, there are the reports that their GDP growth could drop by 1% due to this. which is very significant, especially because their economy is rather fragile at the moment. And second, um, the Polish, they're claiming that they are not hurting humanitarian aid, they're not hindering it, humanitarian military aid, but it just doesn't appear to be true. There are a lot of reports of humanitarian and military aid being stuck at the border. It's getting unfortunate. Particularly access to boats and drones appear to be impacted the most, both of which are incredibly important and time sensitive. The boats, of course, for the battles going on in Kherson, and the drones are obviously important everywhere. So these are just a little bit of things to think about. After our stream here, there will be Bond will have his space on Twitter where they will be talking more about all of these topics in much more detail than we're touching. So if you're interested in that, you can go listen to Bond's space on Twitter. So that's all I got.
And we definitely recommend, check that out. Exit 266 is someone we would go to for more information about this at Tochnyi. So since she's doing a stream with on Bond's space, I'm sure it's going to have way more in-depth information than we could have. But we try to give you just like a general summary. It's a very complex event. As Andrew mentioned, there's a lot of news coverage that mentions like they're letting humanitarian aid through. As Andrew said, just in our practical experience, we know people personally that say that humanitarian aid has been held up in certain situations, and there's photographic evidence. So it's a very difficult and tragic situation. Two truckers have already died at the border just from being. It's not a good time or place to be stuck. And as Andrew said, the economic impact is pretty enormous, 1% of potential GDP growth. So that's really terrible. It's good to hear that there is some progress being made by the government negotiators, but it's definitely something that if you ask Ukrainians right now, what's an important issue that needs to be fixed, I would say this is probably at the top of the list, right? If aside from kicking Russia out of the country, it's this needs to be resolved so that they can get the supplies they need. One Ukrainian mentioned this is like imagine it's Verdun, but like none of the supplies can get through. That's what it feels like for them, and it's a very unfortunate situation. So. Thank you, Andrew, for that extra bit of information from our Ukrainian sources and from others. And that pretty much concludes the general news for the week. I did want to mention there's, of course, one other story which I don't have the detail for in front of me. I meant to get this, but of course, the SBU, there was an explosion at the main train that took goods, I believe, between Russia and China. There was an explosion reported. The SBU took credit for this explosion. They said, we did it. And then there was a second explosion. The SBU additionally took credit for that. As far as I know, Russia, acknowledged this. So there's basically a fairly successful strike on a pretty significant rail line in eastern Siberia, which kind of speaks, I think, a little bit, if we take the SBU at their word, which I think we probably should in this case, that the SBU has pretty significant reach in Russia and is capable of doing operations like this. So that's maybe one other interesting story if anyone maybe wants to talk about it a little bit later. But unfortunately, I don't have like all the direct facts in front of you. Sorry about that. Okay, so that concludes my segment about the news. We're going to now move to German Aid to Ukraine. German Aid to Ukraine, of course, his Twitter handle DEAIDUA. It's also his website. So DEAIDUA.org/en. You can find all of the kind of collated information that he keeps about what's going on with Ukraine. He very meticulously tracks all of the aid that is being sent by the German military and civilian capacities that makes it to Ukraine. He calls the people up and says, "Are you sending this? You made two contradictory statements here. Can you clarify which one's accurate?" So he goes and he follows up. He double checks the information, and he's like what's coming, what's already arrived, and things like that. So he has prepared a report for us, as he does, for the developments this week relating to German aid to Ukraine. So I will now turn it over to you, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much for the very long introduction. And yeah, I'm not very sure if that's needed now. Like, I'm here for the third time. I'm very happy about it. But yeah. So let's start with the summary of German aid to Ukraine this week. On Monday, Germany made public that they have donated NBC filters, masks, and personal protective equipment to Ukraine. The transport of the personal protective equipment itself was co-financed by the European Union Civil Protection Mechanism. They didn't say exactly how much was donated, but from another image I saw, it seems like it was like one full big truck. So yeah, a lot. Also on Monday, the German Bundestag, so the German parliament, donated 1,000 laptops to the Ukrainian parliament. The laptops were handed over by the German ambassador to Ukraine. And for those who are interested into it, from other images I saw, it seems like they were regular Dell work laptops. After 4 months, oh, that's a hot topic. After 4 months, we now got official confirmation by, I'm very sorry to our Ukrainian listeners, Yuri Irnat. I'm very bad with Ukrainian names, so forgive me, please. Spokesperson of the Ukrainian Air Force, that the German-delivered Patriot battery was indeed used to shoot down 2 fighter jets and 3 helicopters in the Bryansk region in Russia in May this year. This was confirmed in an interview on Monday. I am now quoting him. It was a brilliant operation led by the Air Force commander. Thanks to their unconventional and decisive actions, the Patriot SAM units destroyed 5 aircraft in 5 minutes in the Bryansk direction, from where they were then bombarding our northern regions with guided missiles. And we have known this since the beginning of July from the video footage that this happened through the Patriot battery. But we now have an official statement confirming this. This is, of course, somehow controversial, as everyone, especially here in Germany, like all the military experts, are saying, yeah, Ukraine always follows our guidelines, or in general, the guidelines of the partners. And we know that Scholz always said, like, don't use our stuff on Russian territory. You can do this with your own stuff, but not with military aid we have delivered. But now we got the confirmation Ukraine did it anyway. This could, of course, have played a role in the Towers decision, to be honest. Although, in my opinion, it didn't carry much weight. Like, it's very much known that it purely depends on Biden's decisions. And the decision that, like, there's not a comparable system in Ukraine right now. But what's interesting to me is that there's not a single German media outlet reporting on this. Like, not a single one. And this was on Monday. And even in May, when this happened, there was like small reports on maybe there was a Patriot battery was used, but not even in July when we got the video footage, there was not a single report I seen. So yeah, very interesting. And I mean, in my personal opinion, it's not bad that this happened. I just want to make that clear. It's great, and it really shows you that, how effective these modern air defense systems can be when you use them the right way at the front line. Yeah.
I have one thing to add.
Yeah.
When this happened, the Russian story I don't know if this was from the Russian government, but all of, not maybe not all, but many of the propagandists, they all kind of agreed with each other that the Russians had shot down their own aircraft. And I just want to point that out.
Really?
That story that the Russians had kind of concocted for themselves compared to the reality of the Patriot doing it, it's just amusing to me, the contrast.
Well, that's interesting to know. Thank you very much. I didn't know that. But yeah, it seems reasonable that the Russians are not admitting like that the Ukrainians are doing good. They're rather admitting like they're doing something bad, right? Yeah, thank you. So go ahead. And for the last item on Monday, the Körber Stiftung published their 2023-2024 The Berlin Pulse report, which is basically an annual foreign policy publication here in Germany. A very important one, actually. They did a lot of surveys and on the topic of Ukraine and Russia in particular, and I just wanted to present one here, which is very important to me. According to the survey, 66% of the people surveyed still want Germany to continue to support Ukraine militarily. 54% of them want Ukraine to be able to liberate their territories occupied by Russia with our military support, and 41% just want to stop further Russian advances. And yeah, that basically shows you that there is still a somehow big majority in Germany in favor of further supporting Ukraine with military aid. Just want to make that clear because there are always like these kind of statements: are the Western like cutting down aid? Is the population like allowing them to? Yeah. On Wednesday, Germany's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock has announced that Germany is providing Ukraine with a further 11.5 million euros via the NATO-Ukraine Trust Fund for the reform of the armed forces of Ukraine and to further meet the NATO standards. This is, of course, good and needed if Ukraine wants to be a future part of NATO, which they, of course, want to be. One day later, on Thursday, the Minister of Finance of Ukraine, and again, very sorry to our Ukrainian friends, Sergei Marchenko, signed a grant agreement worth 50 million euros to finance a 579% program. The funds will be provided by the German state-owned investment and development bank, KfW, and will be used to finance affordable loans for small and medium-sized businesses in Ukraine. Rheinmetall's CEO Pappberger stated in an interview with Wirtschaftswoche on Friday that he expects the conclusion of a contract with Ukraine for the production of Fuchs APCs and Lynx IFVs by the beginning of the next year at latest. Production in Ukraine, of course. Once the contract has been signed, the aim is to have the first Fuchs produced within 6 to 7 months. 12 to 13 months are planned for the Lynx. According to Pappberger, the first 10 Lynx are already being produced in Germany or Hungary in cooperation with Ukraine. According to him, the German government has already given signals that the export will allowed. That's, of course, a huge announcement, at least for me. I haven't expected the production start in Ukraine until the end of the year, when I'm honest. But yeah, great news if they actually can produce and deliver the vehicles in this timeline. On yesterday, the commander of the multinational special training command, Lieutenant General Andreas Marlow, said that the 61 Ukrainian soldiers which have started their training in Germany on the Patriot air defense system on the 30th of October have now completed their training. From now on, only the air defense system, which, for example, consists of an engagement control station, a radar unit, 8 launchers, and around 60 missiles, will have to be delivered to Ukraine, which I expect to happen in the next 2 weeks. So we will find out in the next 3 weeks. Also on Saturday, very unusual since it's Saturday, the German government updated the list of military assistance to Ukraine and made public that they have delivered the following to Ukraine in the past week: 4 HX-81 tank transporters, 4 semi-trailers for the HX-81, 8 Mercedes-Benz Zetros, 3 regular vehicles, 2 border protection vehicles, 1 mobile antenna mast system, 15 long-range sniper rifles, HLR 338, and for those who are interested into it, HLR stands for Hänel, which is a producer and long range. 60,000 rounds of ammunition for these sniper rifles, 25 laser rangefinders, 5 drone detection sensors, 3,840 shells 155 artillery ammunition, and 250 toolkits with blasting material. Germany also pledged in this update around 230,000 shells 155 artillery ammunition, of which large parts were already known since October. When I remember right, the German government made 2 contracts on 155 artillery ammunition worth about 150 to 200,000 shells. So, like I said, large parts of that was already announced prior by Rheinmetall. They also pledged 435 more of these long-range sniper rifles, HLR 338, 9.9 million rounds of ammunition for these sniper rifles, so very much. 725 laser rangefinders and another 250 toolkits with blasting material. And as the last item of my update this week, the German-Ukrainian organization Bamberg UAHA has provided 19 Ukrainian combat medics freshly trained by the German Armed Forces, by the Bundeswehr, with fully equipped medical rescue backpacks. Another 5 backpacks will be handed over next week. And yeah, that's basically my summary of this week's German aid to Ukraine. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, German aid to Ukraine. So I believe that concludes our news-related segments. So up next, we will be discussing, or I should say our military panel will be discussing some combat footage that has come out this week. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I wanted to make sure, though, Bionade is actually like on his way to Ukraine right now. And I think he maybe has a little report for us, and he's available now. So I think maybe Bionade, is this maybe a good time? Did you want to update us at the moment?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I hope you can hear me well.
Yeah, pretty good.
Connection is not the best. We are on the autobahn, on the Polish border, almost on the way to Ukraine, and yeah, it's wet, it's snowy, but the conditions are good. We can drive. Yeah, but all around it's pretty snowy. Yeah.
Nice. All right. So you're mostly bringing medical supplies, or like other stuff, or I guess we don't want to get into too much detail about the specifics, but yeah, just maybe any information you could give us about kind of the
Oh yeah,
good work you
absolutely.
guys are doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We raised some funds for special winter boots, for special winter gear, and also some medical aid, which we got donated. So this is on the way to Ukraine right now, and yeah, I hope I will be able to show you soon some pictures and everything about it. But yeah, thing right now is obviously
I'm guessing we have some connection
winter
issues
gear.
when Bionade is going through some cell towers.
Possibly also.
Can you try and repeat the last phrase, Bionade?
I think we might have lost our good buddy Bionade. But we do, of course, wish him and the folks with him delivering humanitarian aid a safe crossing into Poland and then into Ukraine. So especially after the story this week. Thank you, Bionade, for the update. Now we will resume our regularly scheduled programming. We will discuss some combat footage that came out this week. So I'm not sure what the boys have for us. Erlend, over to you.
Thank you, Joseph, and good luck to Bionade. I guess the cell towers changing is a little bit tricky with the live stream, but it was good to hear from him. So we have a selection of videos that we find interesting from the front line. There's some Ukrainians doing different things and some Russian interesting vehicles, etc. And I think I'm gonna start with the Bilohoritsky Island. I'm gonna try and share first the tab with the map. I don't know if you can see. Yeah. So this is where this video is from. It's on the Kherson front. Andrew, do you have anything to add about this particular area? I know it's been a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, this area has had a lot of back and forth. Not entirely sure who controls what, to be honest. But the group that we're going to watch is a reconnaissance group. They do a lot of reconnaissance and sabotage type missions in this area of the Dnipro. I'm not sure exactly when this video is from. I think it's from quite a while ago. I think they waited a long time to release it for obvious reasons. And that's what these guys do. They kind of sneak in, they do stuff, and then they pull out. And the Russians are sick of it. I guess that's how I can describe this video. And we can see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and play that video. I'm not gonna play with audio because I don't know how that's gonna turn out. But basically, we see some farmhouses, and I guess they've been abandoned for a long time, haven't they?
Yeah. This whole area. I'm not sure there's any civilians here, although there might be. Who knows?
So basically, light troops, basically just a squad. No vehicles.
Unless you count their little boat.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a little boat. Foot patrol, basically. This is very risky. I mean, this area is saturated with drones, and they're out in the open.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if they wouldn't be observed continuously while operating here.
Your biggest threat in this here, from what I can tell anyway, their biggest threat is a mortar, probably. Getting seen by a drone and then a mortar crew aiming at you. Of course, FPV drones are also a threat, but mortars are much more common.
Yeah, they start running away, so I guess something happened, and they
got engaged by machine gun fire.
Yeah.
So basically, what happened is that they were moving on up. The Russians knew they were coming, and they set up an ambush. So they are falling back under fire. And
and you see the place is absolutely littered with ammo crates and
and garbage.
Yeah, and garbage. Yeah, which is a problem because this is where that's very easy to then observe where your enemy is operating when you leave behind trash. So that's their little boat. That's how they cross this creek.
Yeah. So I believe the Russians are set up in that little town over there. And I believe they have machine gunners, maybe. I'm not sure where they are, but they have a few machine gunners over there laying down some fire. You can see the breath on these guys, so it's got to be cold.
It's cold, yeah.
I don't think this video is like from today or anything, but I don't think it's that recent either.
I think
I just don't think they would release a video that quickly.
So
they know how dangerous it would be.
From just looking at the ground, I think it has been quite a lot of precipitation the last 2 weeks in this area, snow and rain, and I don't see any signs of that on the ground there.
Yeah, maybe
So
it's from October or something.
Yeah. I don't know if it was an injured person in the boat, but it looked like it.
I don't know, but you see Ukraine is setting up their machine guns. You see them laying down. I'm not sure if that's a mortar crew right there, but I'm not sure what they're doing.
I think that was a support crew of sorts, at least. Yeah.
So yeah, this is all. It's just a glimpse into the sorts of missions these guys are doing on these boats. Obviously, this mission did not go to plan. They got ambushed. I have no idea if they took casualties or how many they would have taken. There are no details about that. We do have the name of this group. I can't remember off the top of my head. Do you have it?
I have it somewhere, but I just wanted to say again that if we just go a little bit back, that this is something I've heard about for more than a year now. That these small islands, so maybe not exactly this one, but some of these small islands where there's been which have been contested, they have been just operating very, very small light troops. With very small boats, and it poses a lot of challenges. If you for some reason won't be able to evacuate back, then you're very limited in your resources. If you get cut off because of enemy fire, your boat gets shot up, something like that, then you just have your little backpack with you. I don't think they can stay there for very long, to be honest.
Yeah, these guys are called the Ocean's 12 Friends, I think that's their name.
Yeah, and if you get completely soaked like this, and it's probably around 0 degrees, you have to move quickly. You don't stop. You got to move physically and get your blood circulation going, and you should get inside very quickly or changed. So yeah, if you stay for an hour waiting in the trench, you might go into hypothermia, even if it's just around 0 degrees. But I think it's minus something Celsius here because of the breath of the soldiers.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we're gonna move to the
I think that is a mortar. Isn't that a mortar? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think a small mortar. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think you can see the base plate. 81 millimeter or something. Yeah, I think it's a mortar. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna move to the next video, which is a little bit funny. I'm gonna skip this first part. But yeah, it's a Russian video. We don't really show Russian videos often, but this is interesting because it's they're showing off some sort of new capability that we haven't really seen often, at least from them.
Yep. Yeah, this is a I'm not sure how you would describe this. I call it an ammo robot. I get you could call it a resupply robot or a robotic stretcher, maybe.
Remote controlled tracked car, I would say.
Yeah, so its purpose is to carry things. It doesn't really matter what it's carrying. It could carry anything. It can carry enough to carry a human. I have no idea what its statistics are. I imagine it can carry probably 150 kilograms or something like that. I don't know. But enough to carry a person, enough to carry all of these supplies. This little robot was operating in Avdiivka. So this is to the southeast of Avdiivka. If you look at my map, I have it mapped. So
It even gets attacked in this video by an FPV drone.
It was
I
attacked by an
miss.
FPV drone. I think more than once. I think it was attacked like 2 or 3 times.
It looks like they're very proud of this drone.
Yeah, I think they're happy with it. Honestly, it's good. I mean, I think everybody wants a drone like this. The issues with this sort of drone is how far away can you be to control the drone? Do you have to be 100 meters away, or can you be a kilometer away? Like, what's the range on it? And second, what's its reliability? And third, how much weight can it carry? I think those are kind of the 3 issues.
And also, if it has to be guided by another drone, that could be the case. By the way, look at this Russian throwing, I guess, ammo or something, or whatever he's throwing, just throws it into the trench. Look at that.
Yeah. If you have my map open in another tab, right? You can look at where this is, because I put like 2 car icons in Avdiivka, and that's the 2 scenes of this video are those 2 car icons. You might have to reload it for today.
Yeah. Did you update it? There, it's here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was going under this bridge.
Yeah, so the one further back, I believe, is where they were giving the ammo, I think. You can click it. Oh, no, that's where it was attacked by FPV drone. The other one's the ammo. There you go.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Well, I guess I'll go to the next video, which is one of those. So I don't know if you guys have seen these. I think I'm going to pull that up first. I'm going to change the tab. So these new Russian vehicles, they were presented with a lot of pride when Putin visited the Rostov military command center, or the Southern Military District Command Center in Rostov. And it's this Chinese vehicle, which, a lot of people call it a golf car. It's supposed to be a desert buggy.
Yeah, it's a Desert Cross 1000-3. I think that's the name of it.
Yep. And that was presented, of course, Putin with Shoigu and Gerasimov. Very proud of this Chinese buggy. But to be honest, it's not that bad. Like, if it's good, if its all-terrain properties are good, that's a good thing to have.
I mean, it's like a loaf without doors. That's how I think of it, anyway.
Yeah, but if it's light, it can carry some weight. It looks like it has a load capacity of sorts in the back there. It's useful. It just looks absolutely ridiculous.
Especially this version, because this version is very rectangular. There's another version. I don't know what it's called. I think it actually has the same name, but there's another version that's more rounded and more like car shaped. This is kind of like the toy version.
Okay. Well, anyways, Magyar, he doesn't like them.
No.
So he posted a video.
Yeah, this is this video. This video sparked a lot of fights because nobody could agree on whether those are actually desert crosses in the video, and the video is. I mean, you see the quality of the video. You can't really tell, but it turns out he was telling the truth because we got some aftermath footage.
Yeah, so that's this one.
Here's the aftermath footage. So yeah, in the Magyar video, you can't actually tell how many they destroy because that video is like 6.5 minutes long. If you keep going, he follow like like if you go to like 3 minutes in or something, like he talks about they just kind of follow them around and dropping grenades, and you like the way he edits things, you can never tell exactly what's going on. But it turns out that they destroyed 2 in this video. They kind of stalked it for a while, like driving down a road or whatever this is, a path, and they hit it with some bombs dropped from their little drone there.
Yeah, so it's very difficult to see, obviously, what
Yeah.
what is going on, but they have a lot better picture of what is happening than us.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that they can identify anything with this footage. I'm assuming they had they were watching it all day, maybe, or I don't know.
Or maybe they have a better version that they can't share.
Maybe.
But yeah, it's really difficult to see.
Yeah, I mean, it does very much look like a desert cross in the video. There are a few stills where the desert cross has a very unique ratio of just the sides and lengths of all of its pieces. It's very rectangular. It's like kind of like a square shape, and it's split into 3 parts, where it has like the front where like the engine is, and then there's the middle cab, and then the rear for carrying cargo, I guess. It's like a pickup part. So it has these 3 areas that are very distinctly ratioed, and in this clip, it really does look like one, and it sparked a lot of debate. Yesterday, big fights on Discord of people arguing over what this vehicle was. But the aftermath footage settled a lot of disputes.
Oh, so the idea that this is like something to laugh about is one of those things I've seen Ukrainians being like the same as the T-55 story. It's like it's not fun. Like, we don't want these guys to get this stuff, and I think it's very much the same with this, even if it looks ridiculous. If that's enhancing another capability or well, giving Russia a higher capacity in this sort of light terrain, all-terrain vehicle capacity, that's not good, even if it looks ridiculous and it's Chinese. And they've been supplied quite a significant number of these things, as far as I understand.
Yeah, I think there's 1,000.
Yeah. Well, it's no good. Like, you don't want Russia to get another capability like that. And there's a lot of situations where you don't want a big armored car. You want exactly this thing. It's just maybe the roll cage looks shit, but it has a roof, and that's better than no roof, I guess.
It genuinely looks like one of the old Lego sets from like the 80s.
Yeah, it does actually. Okay, I think I'm gonna go to the next item that Brian shared with me. Brian, welcome as well. If you can speak, I unmuted you now. So what is this that you shared with me?
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So this was something interesting that I came across from Rob Lee. So as for example, like with many FPV drones and stuff, the Russians have thought of a new way. Uh, they have started to cover their vehicles with basically grass and leaves. Like they're tying them to their vehicles of sorts. It's weird. Like I don't know how they look in thermals as of now, but it's really interesting to take a look at. Like if someone in the front actually does does come across them, it's going to be interesting to watch.
This looks very weird, but if that last image is a thermal image of that same grouping, I don't
Oh,
know.
nah. The thermal images look a little bit different. This is like a from a normal camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are covered, I believe, with multiple layers of thermal blankets.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call them thermal blankets. It's something like they made out of leaves and grass. Thermal blankets would look a lot more different. Ukrainians have been using them, and there has been a lot of documented use.
It looks like there is something beneath the leaf and grass as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's a vehicle. That's what it is. It looks like a vehicle to me.
No, I meant like the covering. There's some layer of covering
Oh
beneath
yeah,
the
oh yeah.
actual
Okay,
grass.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
that was weird stuff. I haven't seen this sort of thing, and I don't know exactly what they're covering. This thing looks
Yeah,
kind of shitty, but
Yeah,
not
I
sure what
mean,
and
it is.
I would like to say that this happened near Vuhledar.
interesting.
Yes, to the southeast of Vuhledar. They did an assault yesterday, and this was found after the assault. So
Okay, makes sense. Like Russians Mekalka at it again.
I imagine, maybe you guys can correct me, but like the colder it is, right, the sort of more pronounced any kind of heat signature would be. So I'm not suggesting this is a good method or anything, but maybe it's just sort of signals an increasing desperation to deal with that problem. I don't know.
Exactly. This is something actually some deminers use. Like, for example, if they have to demine a field, they would use a thermal camera and go over the fields. The mines would look a lot more different than the surrounding surface because the mines, like, for example, if they are like made out of metal, they like do not have similar properties to the soil around it, and they heat or cool faster than the surrounding. So it's like you can actually like watch them like really clearly. And it's been something that has been helping a lot of agencies out, those who are trying to demine. It's an interesting property, and if you want to take a look at it, might cover it someday.
Yeah, so when it comes to covering, trying concealing yourself from thermal imaging sensors, there are different ways you can do that, but it could be blankets, it could be thermal, um, like camo nets that have special properties for concealing your thermal um, signature. But the kind of the main common topic for all of these methods is that it isn't going to help you forever, because the longer you stay in the same position covered with that same blanket or camo net, the more heat evaporates, and also you heat up your surroundings as well, and that will then leave a trace below the covering, etc. So I think it's difficult to be completely covered from good thermal imaging forever, but there are certainly ways you can mitigate it. At least you will lower the chances of immediate discovery quite significantly if you have some good thermal blankets or camo nets.
I mean, if you like take it that way, and whenever there's like a SAR image going across it, it'll easily be caught because you can look through foliage with it.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's like a uh, what do you call this? Sort of a pause, like some sort of stopgap measurement. Like so FPV drones don't catch them, but the next day, if a SAR drone passes, they're going to be pointed and going to be caught. So
Yeah. So I know that the Swedish they supplied these Barracuda camo nets with the vehicles that they supplied to Ukraine. So the CV94G and the 122s, they come with the Barracuda, and they have very good thermal camouflage properties. And it's also like one of the reasons why a lot of Swedes were very upset when the first CV90 was lost, because they actually look at that technology as one of the most vital technologies that they don't want the Russians to get. But yeah, I mean, it's lost. So doesn't really matter. But they are really good, and they've been secrets for a long time. This is the first time it's ever been used in combat.
I mean, yeah, camouflage in the battlefield is very important. It's like something that can mean for you to stay hidden, for your equipment to stay hidden. It's really interesting.
Yep. I see that we also got a question from David. I kind of waited a little bit before answering it. I'll try to answer it to my best of knowledge. And the question is if we're seeing any impacts of delivery of 155 shells or other supplies due to the Israel conflict. So, as far as I understand, the shells provided to Israel from America is actually not coming from the same supply chains as the ones that have been coming to Ukraine. The shells Israel has been receiving from the US were already in Israel in American magazines, as far as I understand. But there is definitely a lack of ammunition, and especially 155s and mortars. I don't know if Andrew can say anything more about that, but it's a significant challenge to Ukraine. One of the really disappointing news that came out, a couple of weeks or 3 weeks ago, is that the European Union basically admits that they will not be able to meet the 1 million extra shells for Ukraine within March, which they announced last winter. But they are delivering shells under the same program. It's just that arriving to the 1 million shells is probably going to be impossible for the EU.
Yeah, the ammo to Ukraine, the issue is not related to Israel. It's related to, frankly, our government being incompetent and bickering over finding a new Speaker of the House for like a month straight, and then now they're bickering over other things. They're not doing their job. That is the actual issue here. It's not Israel. Israel was just a coincidence that it happened at roughly the same time that our government was, eating itself. Maybe at some point our government will do its job, but they haven't yet. So maybe tomorrow.
It's also a problem that Europe isn't delivering more ammunition than it used to already. It went down. Like the deliveries, at least Ukraine says that the deliveries have been going down since before the summer. And that's very disappointing in many ways. But we also know that there are many efforts to ramp up production and giving more aid to Ukraine when it comes to not just 155, but also other types of ammunition. But the problem is that it's just going too slow. There are reasons for it that is very difficult to comprehend. A lot of the decision making from many countries, or basically all of the countries in Europe, makes my mind go absolutely crazy. The EU basically said, like, hey, here's free money for your factories if you want to invest for increased capacity. And basically, almost no country has decided to take up on that offer from the EU, which is absolutely bonkers for me. And also, some of the countries that are investing in new production capacity may have been taking decisions on the financial basis rather than the actual speed of increasing capacity, which is, in my opinion, very stupid, because giving Ukraine a lot more ammunition as fast as possible probably pays off in the long run if you can deliver several months before, because the cost for Europe that this war is going on is financially insane. It is absolutely astronomical in the long run. So saving some money to expand your production capacity a little bit slower for me just doesn't make any sense.
No, the longer we wait to give supplies, the longer the war will be and the more expensive it will be in the long run, no matter what. The fallout of Ukraine losing will be probably a catastrophe that will be extremely expensive and time consuming to repair. And if Ukraine wins, that will also be very expensive and time consuming to repair. And either way, we will, every day we wait, we're basically spending more money. We're spending money to do nothing. And it seems like a pretty bad way to spend money to me.
Yeah, it's not just the spending money because we're aiding Ukraine, but also the impact it has on European economy and Western economies as a whole it should be taken into account. And I mean, when a country drops significantly in its GDP because of a war, it's not just costing money to that specific country, and it's not just a bill we're picking up by paying aid money for Ukraine's government to being able to function, etc. It's also that we're not trading with them, which is going to in the long run take a lot longer to repair, and it's also going to be a lot more total money that is going to be drained out of our economies. So instead of paying upfront money to the factories, basically, that needs to expand their capacity, what many of the producers have been doing, because that's what they get from the government, is large orders of ammunition, which will basically keep their order books full for the next 5 to 10 years, so that they have some sort of predictability. But they didn't give enough money for buying the necessary equipment and materials to rapidly expand capacity. And it's of course different from country to country that deliver shells to Ukraine, but it's kind of the common denominatory cause of why the delays is happening. I know some countries have invested considerably more amount of money into this than others, but it is still far from ideal. I know that German Aid to Ukraine has some more information about this topic as well, if you want to add on to it.
Sorry, I was not very carefully listening. What's the question?
So about expanding ammunition capacity, I know that Germany is investing heavily into it, but it's also like a kind of a little bit confusing how it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, the German government is investing, yes, but not as much as the industry wants to. Let's put it that way. And yeah, it's hard. I mean, at the end, like the statement Pistorius, the German Minister of Defense, made. Or when did he made it? I believe 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago or something. He basically said that Ukraine can expect more ammunition from Germany in 2025. He wasn't even talking about 2024. He was talking about the deliveries of artillery ammunition will go up in 2025. So, and at the end, the statement stands. And no matter how big we are investing and stuff like that, it's never enough. And we have a lot of contracts for example, artillery ammunition. There are over 200,000 shells officially pledged and contracted, like 250 about right now. And we have mortar ammunition pledged over 100,000 shells, 120 millimeter. And that's just Germany alone. So other countries are also contracting Rheinmetall and other producers, but yeah, it's never enough. They want, from the articles I read and from the news media which I read and see, it's like they want contracts worth 10, 20, 30 billions, and yeah, it's not possible. It's not. I mean, it could be possible. I don't know. I'm not inside the government. I'm just saying, like, we have right now framework contracts with Rheinmetall worth 1.5 billion euros, something like that, and we have like ordered 3 times from this contract, worth a couple of hundreds of million euros. But that's of course, or it seems like not enough for the industry to really expand the production.
One other thing I'd maybe add about this is just that we've seen a very strong signal from Russia at basically every level we've analyzed that shows that they're very serious about increasing their own military production, right? Like the Russian budget recently passed. It's, historic in terms of how much it's giving to the military. And then in addition to that, every economic report we see about Russia shows like basically a shortage of workers because they're being pulled out of the civilian economy for making butter to make guns, right? So, Russia's and missile production, like everything we've seen about production has shown us that Russia's serious about it. So, I'm not trying to raise any alarms here, but I think it's a pretty strong signal, and it needs to kind of be taken seriously by Europe and Ukraine's allies. And we need to get maybe a little bit more serious the way Russia is about it, right?
Yeah, and in a whole, as a whole, the military industry in Europe isn't really expanding as fast as it should be, and this is a sign that it's far from the point where European political leaders have understood the gravity of the situation that we are in when it comes to security. There are a few countries who have definitely been investing a lot more than they have the last 20, 30 years in the military. We see Sweden, for instance, basically doubling down on their industry sector over the next few years. My country, Norway, is also increasing the defense spending by a lot. Germany came with this big 100 billion euro investment package last year. But other than that, we don't see far from enough of a movement politically towards the point where we're actually in a crisis situation. Because if Ukraine doesn't win this war for us, basically, with their own blood and their own sacrifice, and then we are in big trouble for the next 10 to 20 years. And the longer we wait to restart our defense industry capacity and bring it back to maybe not the same level as it was during the Cold War, but at least something comparable to that, it's going to cost us enormous amount of money, and also the security of Europe is at risk. Russia is expanding their capacity. They're also reaching out to new allies that they're establishing supply lines with, and it's not a joke. Like, we're joking about Korean munitions, okay, but they're actually, hurting Ukrainians, and that's something we need to take seriously. Welcome, Daniele. Okay, I'm not sure if you can hear us. But we also got another question from the chat. I don't know how precisely I can address it. So it's from Dastan. Can you address lack of machine guns? Well, what I can address is that we hear from people on the front, infantry soldiers, and they say that they lack everything that is basic equipment. And I've heard that there's not enough machine guns around, but I've also heard that there's not enough helmets, not enough plate carriers, not enough IFAKs and basic first aid equipment. So it's not surprising that there's a lack of machine guns. Andrew, do you know anything in particular to a lack of machine guns?
I've not heard really anything about people complaining about machine guns. I do know that there are parts of the Ukrainian military that are not equipped with machine guns, and they probably should be, like territorial defense forces I'm not sure how many of them have machine guns. It's possible they are getting them now, and by now I mean over the past few months. But I've talked to territorial defense guys who the only machine gun they got was getting it from a Russian. So yeah. Other than that, I've not heard people specifically talking or complaining about machine guns, but I also don't really talk that often to people who use machine guns, to be honest. We talk more to like drone operators and medics and people like that. I don't really talk to machine gunners, you know.
Yeah, I'll try again. Welcome, Daniela.
Hello to everybody. Sorry for my cracking voice.
So
Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you loud and clear. When it
Good
comes
evening.
to good evening, and when it comes to ramping up military industry in Europe, Daniela, do you also see that politically we're far from where we should be, where you are?
Yeah, generally speaking, on paper looks like everything is good, but then in practice is very bad the situation because I mean the evidence are in the fact that European Union failed to essentially achieve the 1 million shell rounds. Probably is going to fail that because it's very far from the aimed production quota at this period of time. And but if you take a single nation, because this was a commitment of European Union, of course, which we have to be very mild with European Union as an institution because European Union is essentially the biggest financial contributor for fundings to Ukraine in order to allow Ukraine to work with the United States, of course, but it's the largest because as focus has always been financing the government and makes everything running essentially from pensions to stipend the soldier, stipend to the doctor, etc. So they never put these as a strategic team, probably because politically they always saw NATO more inclined to, work in the field of military, and because there are also a lot of collaboration and plans already within NATO. Most of European Union members are within NATO, so probably they saw this as just doubling an effect, an effort that wasn't needed probably. And then the problem comes to the single nations, because the single nation have to invest in order to allow industries to perform to the point that you want. Now, there are effective measurement done across Europe, like NAMMO in Norway and BAE system in UK, which despite difficulties and other issues, they have been funded properly, and just in September, but then again a month ago, I think was no, sorry, in July and in September they were announced a couple of packages of funding from the government for different programs, but mainly were in order to boost the production of 155 artillery shell, which for UK is particular because UK has always used a lot 105. So for them, this is a clear sign that they want to help and not only rebuild their own strategic quota, and also they ramped up mortar 30 millimeter caliber for IFVs and another small caliber, especially the 5.56. So this should be an example to other nations. Also, Germany is working quite a lot, but the problem is the pace and the commitment, which is always very difficult to see through unless you are behind the scenes working on this. And from what we can see, Germany is trying to do a bit, but of course is also delivering other aid, military aid, very expensive military aid, like the Iris-T platform. So I think other nations should also step up. For example, France, Italy, Spain, all these nations should step up more and do more in order to support the other partners, which, in all honesty, are doing their part. And this should be a collective effort. And at the moment, there are some doing a lot. Probably they could do more, but politically is also very hard for a democracy to show to its citizen, oh, we have to do more than others, which are essentially sleeping. That's complex. That's required time, and Ukraine not always have this time. And Andrew know this as well for the 120 millimeter mortar round, which has been a topic of discussion of the last few months a lot.
Yeah, and we saw numbers of production coming out from Italy through a very, very bizarre article written in La Repubblica. Basically, some peacenik guy writing about pieces of metal of death and stuff like that. But he revealed the production numbers of the factory in Sardinia, and they were quite embarrassing. Like something like 600 rounds per month, and only 300 of them actually going to Ukraine per month.
Yeah, that's the problem, and that's what makes me physically hungry, because we have capabilities and also the money to solve the problems, because you may have problem during ramping up production. We know that, but if you have a commitment from the policymakers, have a commitment and plans, then industries can do their work, because you have to also to understand that US is unique in this scheme, because US own the plants. In Europe, we don't own the plants, so the plants are owned by private sector. But this doesn't have to be perceived as bad. The problem is that you need to give demonstration that the government is ready to pay for, I don't know, a worth production of €1 billion or in rounds. Because if you're not willing to demonstrate that you are going to buy, why I should invest more? I mean, there are also more moral reason for sure, but these are private company by the end, so they need also some insurance from the government. And so I don't think I saw a question in the chat. Forgive me if I just read. So asking if this is like a kind of strategy of the West to try to undermine the victory of Ukraine, and so for some instability reason in Russia. Honestly, this is my only opinion, but I don't think this is the reason. The main problem is that democracy is very complex and is made by different actors. And in order for democracies to work in an efficient way, they need to be oriented all in a proper direction. Otherwise, some goes in a direction, some goes in another one. So I don't think this is a concern, especially for Europe, because we saw that Russia is not going to become a stable nation by any means, even if Putin goes. So I don't think this is the real problem is commitment, and also willing to risk to being re-elected. And this is sad, because there are people dying, and if you think that politicians make this calculation, they do. They unfortunately do. Until yeah, go on.
Sorry, but yeah, I think that you can definitely, to a certain degree, say that the fear of completely destabilizing Russia by giving too much aid to Ukraine, so that they would crush the Russian army, and that the Russian army would collapse, and that would collapse the power structure in Russia, etc. I think that has been, at least to a certain degree, a factor amongst some of the decision makers on the international level, but I don't know if it has been the main factor. If that's something they still fear, then that's absolutely horrendous because it makes it basically ensures a lot more death and suffering for Ukrainians, and also in the long run, it's going to deter Russia a lot worse, and I think maybe even increase the risk of a complete collapse of the Russian kind of empire. So I think if that's the case, it's a complete miscalculation. And it would absolutely make me furious if that's the case.
And let's talk about the destabilizing factor of Russia winning. It would be a terrible precedent for the whole world for Russia to be able to go into a country and colonize it. We don't want to live in a world where countries are colonized, because once one country is allowed to colonize another, you're going to have more countries do it. And saying things like, well, we don't care about this country, they can be colonized. But what about the next country that gets colonized? Maybe you'll care about that one. Maybe it'll be your country, you know? This is not the world we want to live in. We want to live in a world with law and order, where people respect each other and respect international norms, not one where you get to do wherever you want, do whatever you want to the people around you without consequences.
Yep, I absolutely agree. And it's not just about China and Russia. We have also other factors, or bigger actors doing bad stuff in Africa and South America at the moment, which is kind of concerning. And I think that the Russian invasion of Ukraine definitely has, at least to a certain extent, enabled some of these conflicts to arise, and some authoritarian leaders to commit to actions which they wouldn't have if the international order was respected. And it is even more important that those big actors like Russia, China, the US, and NATO, first of all, respect the international order, and if not respecting it, will be held accountable by the rest of the international community for the stabilization of all of the world. It will increase instability for sure the next decades if we let this pass by. So it's just morally absolutely incomprehensible for me if the decision makers in Washington and European major leaders are basing the aid to Ukraine that they supply on these sort of questions. So I also have another question which I want to try and address, which is, I'm not going to be able to answer it because we don't know. And in general, there are no production numbers from the manufacturers in Europe in the clear. There are some predictions about what, for instance, Rheinmetall is going to be able to do by the end of next year, etc. But we don't know the actual production numbers, neither from Nammo, from Rheinmetall or BAE Systems. But what we do know is that Nammo came out with their calculation of what was needed in order to fulfill the supply, the demand in the European market, and the number they gave for investment just in infrastructure and production capacity was about 7 billion euros, and that's not to actually supply the demand, but to enable the producers to fulfill the demand. It's not really normal for these sort of defense industry companies to put their numbers in clear, and I don't think we will see that in the closest future either.
Yeah, there are some like groups we've worked with in the past that like are interested in this stuff. I think they're just people that I would just describe as like hobbyists who, or I'd say too, there's people who are basically stockholders in defense companies that are kind of interested in these things. And so they're always kind of trying to figure stuff out. one thing they mentioned is like you can sort of maybe figure out how many people are being hired. Like if we see, lots of people being hired at a plant, or you see shifts increasing, you can make some, kind of extrapolations of numbers, but it's all basically guesswork. And so, yeah, I would say we're pretty much not even really comfortable, guessing at it. But yeah, there are people who like kind of make attempts at it,
Yeah, I guess you can, through some open source numbers that have arrived through different channels, like for instance, the amount of munitions supplied to Ukraine, etc., you could probably calculate and estimate a circa amount of production capabilities. But it's kind of difficult also because when Germany supplies munitions to Ukraine, it's not just from Rheinmetall. They buy from various suppliers. They buy Italian munitions as well, and supply them. So it's also difficult to orient just by the numbers we see about aid to Ukraine.
Just want to add, like this, the only confirmed number from Rheinmetall was like from 2022, before they bought Expa Systems. And they themselves said that they are producing 80,000 artillery shells per year. That was in 2022, I believe, in when was it? October, November, something around that. And there's not a confirmed number, just want to make that clear, but the Handelsblatt a couple of days ago reported, based on industry sources, that the German industry itself has right now a production capacity of around 300, I believe it was 300,000 artillery shells per year. The whole German industry, including the factories, I believe, including the factories, for example, Rheinmetall, the factories in Spain with Expa. And yeah, just to make that clear.
Yeah, we also had a segment with Daniela on this particular issue. I think a month ago or something, or 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was quite I think it was my first talk here. And so what I'm going to share is based on publicly available information, so nothing, I mean, everything was carefully hidden in a magazine of BAE system. And of course it was prior. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
So this was prior the invasion. So this is the plant in Washington. Just to give a bit of context, in UK we have essentially 5 production centers. One is in Washington, which produce a mortar round, a 30 millimeter brass casing for a 105, and 155. So this is what is produced in Washington. Then we have Radaway Green, which is a magnificent installation because produce an enormous amount of small caliber ammunition. They were producing 2 million round, I think, per month, and now they moved to 5 million. So I'm talking about 556, and whatever is produced in Washington have to go in glass code, which is the filling station. So essentially, empty shell travel, once they are finished, travel through glass code to be filled. Now, as you can see, I also had some kind of additional jobs that were created at the very start of the war. There was like a 480 million pound gave to BAE to boost up the production, but recently they got another 280. And this is what I mean when I say that a government should support and show it's willing to invest by giving money and giving financial capabilities to these industries to do their work. So in the case prior the war, this was the production. So around 75,000 81 millimeter mortar round per year. Of course, looks small now, but this is easily to ramp up. The large caliber now, we don't know which proportion was 105, 155. The process is essentially the same, and this was around 16,000 per month. So this to give you a figure of what was operating prior to the war. Now the BAE has committed to produce 160,000 round per month by 2026, but no one knows if they meet already the target, if they are going to do more. So this is, of course, as Erlend said, very well hidden, especially now. And this just to give you, and even these numbers, this was the numbers. They hired 100 people. They already hired other 200 in Washington plant. This is the plant from Google Earth. Is very big and has essentially a production line that starts from from top to bottom. So you start from forging and other hot facilities, and then you travel down until the end when the product is finished through all the different phases. So after the product is done, essentially needs only to be filled and shipped to Ukraine or to MOD. So just to give you an understanding of the numbers, this prior to the war, and they are ridiculously small, as you can imagine. But now should be higher, in theory.
Yeah. Well, if there are no more comments to these topics and no more questions from the audience, I think we are going to move to Jonathan, which I think he has one more topic before he has his closing picture of the week segment.
Yeah,
Hey, Jonathan.
thanks, Erlend. Hi. Just on the political aspect of this, the Dmitry War Translated, his team holds a Twitter space every Sunday, which is I'd very much recommend listening to. One of the topics of discussion today was the role of the West, the inadequacies of the West in terms of supplying Ukraine, and the political aspects, the dimension to this of the idea that some people don't want the complete collapse of the Russian Federation, and that this argument avoids the binary choice that the West faces, which organizations such as the OSCE face following the revelations of this week in the Radio Free Europe reporting. There seems quite clearly on the evidence presented this week and before a legacy of Russian infiltration at the OSCE, which offered advice to international bodies, which in turn may have potentially informed policy. The argument was made on Dimitri's space that, and by somebody who spoke well of the OSCE and of its shortcomings, that we are in a period of a 2014 legacy in terms of European politics. We have overcome some of the obstacles of that legacy that see Ukraine being able to adequately arm itself. We, of course, have not seen that entirely satisfactorily, but it exists. And to what extent it exists today or will exist tomorrow, these are questions which we should be campaigning to our elected representatives about, because that legacy of the Merkel era, of the Cameron era in my country, it's a legacy which unfortunately exists today in a diminished form. However, it continues. So I just thought I'd add. Please do tune into Dimitri's space or catch it on the replay if you can. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. So I'm going to try and add the last question from Dastan here. before we go to the closing section. So the question is basically transferring more and more guided shells to Ukraine looks like a logical decision after cluster shells dry up. And what we think about this, well, to a certain extent, precision guided munitions can mitigate the problem with the lack of munitions, but they're essentially two different roles, and Ukraine needs both unguided munitions, like normal mortar shells and normal artillery shells, both 155, 105, and their legacy Soviet artillery calibers. They need those unguided shells anyways, and they need a lot of them. And I'm also uncertain of the ability of the West to provide vast amounts of more of precision guided munitions to Ukraine at this point.
And in terms of what we're talking about, Erlend, so we're talking about things like Excalibur, which has like a special kind of guidance system, like fins and things. We were talking about bonus, which, I mean, if we're going to super oversimplify it, it's like an anti-tank weapon inside of an artillery shell. So there's lots of these specialized shells. Obviously, I'm super oversimplifying here, but in general, from what I recall, there may be on the order of about 10 times more expensive than like a normal shell to produce in terms of.
Yeah, even more than 10 times. I think like an Excalibur shell, I think it's like $116,000 now. And you can get 155s down to, I think, $600 if I'm not wrong.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's incredibly more expensive. You also have an Italian version, which isn't really an Excalibur, the Volcano round, which is very capable, especially when it comes to its distance. But they are also incredibly expensive, and only a certain. I think only the Panzerhaubitze 2000 can actually fire it. Yeah, I mean, the problem with the precision guided munitions is also not every artillery piece can actually utilize it, and you need a special I-star capability to effectively use it as well, and that is not something they all have at all times. So I don't think we can fix the problem by giving them more PGMs, to be honest. Having more of them is always good. We saw some absolutely amazing use of, I think, the Volcano round this week, where Ukraine took out a Russian air defense system, I think about 70 kilometers into the Russian-controlled area. And that's what it's good for. It's not necessarily good for covering fire when you're assaulting.
I think too, it just really speaks to like how accurate Ukrainians are with artillery, right? Like, in other words, Ukrainians need more shells, period.
Yeah.
And they have, it's an oversimplification to say there's only so much military aid, and if they spend if they spend bucks on this, they can't spend bucks on that. But that is to say, I think there's a logic to, if the Ukrainians can usually hit something in 3 hits with a regular shell, they don't need, it might be overkill for a lot of what they're doing, in terms of they would much rather have, as we calculated here, 10 times the shells, if they can solve the problem with that stuff. But I think it's true, as Erlend said, more of these would be good. No one's denying that. I am curious, like Andrew, like if you've seen any of these special shells, like artillery shells used, and if you think there's any that in particular that would be like particularly useful for Ukraine. Maybe not like, a good replacement or anything, but just that you would like to see more of in Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a volcano shell the other day. Apparently, we don't know for sure, but probably destroy a book, which was pretty cool. We have all sorts of video of Excalibur destroying various things. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that these shells, I'm pretty sure all of them have very long minimum ranges. I believe you have to fire them at max charge in the gun, which does wear on the gun itself. Although you're probably not going to be shooting enough precision shells for that to really matter, but it does wear the shell more than a standard shell does. And so yeah, and these shells are ridiculously expensive. Let's keep that in mind. They're very, very expensive. And also, to a lesser extent, how special are these rounds now? Because we have FPV drones that can deliver extremely accurate munitions, and we also have fixed wing drones that can deliver munitions as well. And fixed wing drones are becoming increasingly popular and increasingly common for one really big reason, is that you do not need China to make a fixed wing drone. All of our quadcopters, like Mavics, they all come from China. Nobody trusts China to continue delivering these things. And if a conflict ever breaks out between like China and Taiwan or whatever, who knows what could happen, all those drones could be cut off in a matter of a moment. So everybody's trying to move to fixed wing drones, which can be made in Ukraine or in Europe or whatever. They're typically pretty cheap. They are fast. They're lightweight. They have long range. They're very good, actually. And they're much more just inherently resistant to electronic warfare, because if you lose connection to a fixed wing drone, they can glide, whereas a quadcopter, it's much more difficult to handle losing that connection. You can have it fly straight up if you lose connection, or you can have it land, or have it fly to a waypoint, but none of those are guaranteed to be successful. Whereas with a fixed wing drone, you can have it glide and change the way it's communicating by changing its hopping algorithms or whatever to try to escape the electronic warfare. So anyways, fixed wing drones are a big deal, and they can supply munitions by dropping bombs or by just flying into things as a kamikaze. So all these things, are these precision weapons really necessary in the modern battlefield? I'm not really sure.
I think a combination of both this sort of drone fixed wing delivering basically a precision guided munition, and systems like the Excalibur or the Volcano is preferred, because the delivery time is certainly the biggest difference here. It's also a lot more reliable, but when the price is, in order of, more than $100,000 per round, then it's, I don't know if it's going to be profitable in the war economics in the long run, in the decades coming. But for Ukraine right now, having these rounds supplied is a good thing. It's not like you just don't want to stop supplying them because the economics is not there in the favor of the PGMs versus drones, in my opinion, at least. By the way, this is the video of that book system being destroyed, and you can see the round here, and that's, of course, you can't really identify if it is a volcano, but at least it matches more or less the how it looks like. But yeah, it's just a few pixels. But the question was if it was
the range. The range is more the interesting data point, because this was very, very far.
Yeah, and also it doesn't look like it's a harm, because the harm tends to explode before it hits the target. But yeah, you see acquiring the target is the key here, and this is far into Russian-controlled territory, and they're flying a surveillance drone there.
Yeah, it's about 48 kilometers back, if I remember right.
Yeah, but also if you want to stay in a safe place to fire your round, you need to stay even further back. So wasn't this okay? I can try and share this on the map. Was somewhere in this area, wasn't it? I think it was somewhere in this area here.
You know, there's a lot of Russian.
Yeah, if you go back 3 or 4 days, you'll see it.
Yeah, there.
Yeah, I think the takeaway there, right, is you can definitely justify the cost of one of these specialized rounds here. You're taking out a sophisticated air defense system there for, you know, a relatively cheap cost, as long as you can identify the target and get the round there, and it's probably a pretty good solution. But as a general use case, it probably is not the answer, right?
Yeah, and you know, when the cost is in the magnitude of hundreds of thousands of dollars, then it's justified when you take out a book, and the book system is highly mobile. So if you identify the target and try and fly a drone there, it might not be there anymore. But the fact that Ukraine is able to fly surveillance drones providing ISTAR data while firing this round also basically speaks for the fact that they can be used in this sort of suicide missions, if you call it that. I think.
Oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think maybe one more data point too is just, at least in the U.S. experience, right? Just to say we obviously have access to all of the satellites and all the information, targeting information we need. We're very sophisticated with our use of these munitions, but I still remember U.S. Soldiers mentioning that in these operations they would launch a smart munition at a building where they knew their opposition forces were. Then those guys would clear out of the building and they'd hit the next building, and eventually they just leveled the whole block anyway, with smart munitions, right? In other words, if you're dumb, the smart munitions aren't too smart either, right? So it's how you use them. I don't know. There's you want to use these things in a more sophisticated way than just general bombardment, right?
Yeah. Another thing is that the process of loading them up and firing them is not something you can just do repetitively, one after another. You need the data of the coordinates of the target, and you need to load that up in the system, fire it, verify if the target hit. But when you call for fire in the general area, that process is a little bit different. I'm not an artillery guy, as you can understand, but you can put a lot more rounds down range to a grid in a shorter amount of time, and sometimes that's the only way you can achieve your objective. And Ukraine is defending in a lot of sectors, firing into grid zones, and I don't think you can do that with PGMs in the same way.
Okay, so I think we're wrapping up our military panel. Erlend, is there any other stuff you wanted to cover today for military stuff?
No, I think we've covered a lot of different topics, and I don't have any more on my list. So, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in this week to Tochnyi Weekly. We do broadcast every week, 2 hours ago from now. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Oh, go ahead, Erlend.
But I think we have one more segment.
Of course. Oh my goodness gracious. I forgot about the picture of the week. We are now moving to the picture of the week. I don't know. Sometimes in my mind, I think we close out with it, but I guess this makes more sense. So picture of the week is now before us. Please, if you could, turn your attention. And Jonathan, over to you.
Our woodland scene unfolds. Its tapestry overhead in seasons past weaved patchwork quilts of emerald married Ukrainian gold. Leaves whisper secrets in the gentle breeze, chronicles supplanted by tales multitude, of which but one will here be told. The ancient rhythm of this place, which once pulsed with life, offered sanctuary for those seeking solace, not sacrifice, within untamed beauty, has become a place where people live, lives ended, or are forever changed, and where the futures of country, continent, and lands beyond defined. Deeper into the woodland we traverse, where we halt, for this, a carving on a tree, into wood by hands of steel, a coat of arms of knights present and of old. Time seems slow, the world for our moment fades away, leaving only the rustling leaves and radioed voices echoing in the breeze. Overhead billows cotton grey cloud like celestial scrolls, painting verses of silver and a tale to extol, the tale of which we are told, that of Ukraine's 24th Brigade, its history old, a tale of women and men who toil in cold. Tochnyi's picture of this week is this, a symbol of a story which perpetually unfolds.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, for the picture of the week. If you, dear listener, have a picture you would like to submit for the picture of the week, a picture from the Russian invasion of Ukraine that has particularly moved you or you find interesting or worth commenting upon, we would appreciate your feedback. So you can send it to us over on Twitter. If you could send it to us on YouTube, I'll offer it to you, but I don't believe there's any way to do so. So that would, I assume, be the best way to do it. So thanks to Jonathan for that picture this week. And in the audience have one you want to submit for future weeks, feel free to do so. So with that, I will now close out for real. So thanks again, everyone, for listening to Tochnyi Weekly. Again, we broadcast every week on Sunday at 2 hours ago from this time. We put this broadcast together. We do have other projects, though. Sometimes we do interviews. Sometimes we just have streams about what's going on in the moment. So if you do want to be kept aware of all that stuff, please do check out our Twitter account, subscribe there. Also subscribe to our YouTube, of course. So thanks again for tuning in. Yeah, we also have a podcast. We should start putting this stuff as audio on the podcast. We've kind of gotten a little bit confused about where stuff goes, but if you want to check out like a pretty extensive backlog of stuff, we're going to try to take the relevant stuff and put it on YouTube eventually. But yeah, it might be an interesting place to check out. Beyond that, I believe right now is Michael Bond's space on Twitter. There's a bunch of guys over there and gals who we definitely respect in terms of their analytical abilities. So if you are kind of interested in this type of coverage about what's going on in Ukraine and I think the larger world, they cover, I think, a little bit more than just Ukraine, but they definitely focus pretty strongly on Ukraine. Please do check out their stream. Andrew, that stream's happening right now, right? Michael Bond's stream?
Yes.
Yeah. That's
well, it starts in 3 minutes.
Okay, cool, yeah. So we would recommend you check it out. It's always good. So thanks again to our listeners. Thanks to our panel for putting together a very excellent information this week and having a nice discussion. We appreciate all the questions. If you guys have, I guess, questions, you can submit them to us on Twitter. In the interim, we'll try to put them in our pocket, remember to answer them, or even if you guys ask a really good question, we might do a segment about it or something. So we're always open to your feedback. So thanks to the audience, thanks to the panel, thanks to everyone, and we'll see everybody next week. Goodbye.
Slava Ukraini.
Heroium Slava.
Heroiam Slava.
On behalf of the brave.